Okay, hello and welcome. Brett here with clickmill.co. In this video, we're going to talk about the law of diminishing returns. Now, when we look at the world from what we might call a component view, a component thinker, someone who only sees the little piece, it's very easy to assume that if you do one thing and it gives you one result, if you do two things, it'll give you two results. We see life, and generally people see life in a linear way. And this is so true, especially in ministries. If we do this thing and 10 people come into church, and then we just do that 10 times, we'll have 100 people come into church. And so we expect linear growth. Now, that is rarely the case when it comes to complex systems. In your ministry, your business is a complex system. And what this is the law of diminishing returns. And so, for example, if you are in a community of, say, 20,000 people, are there people looking for church? Yes. If you started marketing and started, let's say, buying keyword searches off of Google for best church near me this Sunday, those people are highly motivated to come to church. And what happens? It starts working. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is working. We're paying $20 to get a new person in church. And over the lifetime of that person coming to church, they're going to tithe $500. We're seeing growth. We're seeing increase. We can take that extra income because we're stewarding our money wisely, and we can reinvest that into getting more people in the church. And that is a very wise and stewardly way of thinking about growing if you're looking at growing the church in numbers. What is the problem? Just dumping more money into the ad system that works at one level does not mean it will work at a higher spending amount. Why? Because at some point you hit the upper limit of the number of people searching in your community for a church near them. So let's say there's 1,000 searches a month. That's actually super high. 20,000 people, 1 in 20 is looking. That's not happening. Let's say there's 100 searches a month. You start buying 10 of those and you're like, wow, man, we're getting them into our church for $20 each. This is a deal. We're calling, we're following. Let's dump in another 500 a month. Well, what happens when you start buying all 100 or 200 or 300 or 500 of those searches every month of people saying best church near me on Sunday? Well, there's none left to buy. And so what happens is you start buying less and less serious people searching until you're only buying people looking for the word church, or Bible or something unrelated. And these people looking for your church aren't quite as serious the more you spend. So what happens? At first, it costs you $20 to get them into your ministry, but as you exhaust the pool of people looking for ministries nearby, it gets more and more expensive because you have to actually pay more money to convince them to sign up. And so this is the law of diminishing returns. The more you invest, oftentimes with a complex system, the less you get out of the investment. And so there becomes this place where you have to decide, is it worth it to continue the investment? And a great way to do this is to decide what is the minimum fruit we're willing to get out of the system. And I do this with clients when we do advertising. What is the total return you're looking for? And an average advertising account that is professionally managed returns somewhere around 2 to 2.5 times the amount spent on the ad. So if you put $1 into the advertisements on Google, you should get somewhere around 2 to 2.5 times back. So you put in $1, you get 2 to 2.50. That is how it should work if you're running a professional advertising campaigns. Now, I've seen this up as high as 50 or 75, which is really uncommon. That would be wild. And of course, I've seen people who are just getting zero return and just throwing all their money in the trash. Those are not my accounts, but that does happen a lot of times when ministries bring us their accounts. That's happening. We're Christian business owners. And so what we need to decide is, what's the minimum we need to make to be stewarding our money wisely? And usually that number is 2, 2.5, maybe 3. But if you need it higher than that, you have a problem with how much your ministry is costing or how much your business is costing in expenses to what you're making. I mean, you should be able to function with a 2 times return on your ads or a 3 times return. Okay, so let's say the minimum we want to be at is 3. Awesome. Well, now what we can do with our diminishing returns, and for example, we had a Christian e-commerce business come in at one point, and the diminishing returns was a very important factor. They came in and their ads were returning them 11 or 12 times return, which is very high, which is great. You put in $1 and you get out 11. The problem is there's not very many people who are that motivated to buy. And so they said, well, we want to increase our profit. And so it's okay, we will add more money to what is being spent. But the more money we add, we're going to reach more and more people. Well, those people at some point are going to be less motivated to purchase, and you're going to see that return come down. It's going to go to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Where do you want to be? And they said, well, we would like to be minimum around 5, which is very high for most businesses and ministries. But let's say they said they want to be around 5, which they did. So we increased the budget for advertising until basically they were buying everyone who was willing to purchase their product and at the same time get them a return of 5. And what they said was, we know the return is going to diminish the more we add into it, and the least return we're willing to get is 5. 5 times return. We put in $1, we need 5 back. And so that is the law of diminishing returns. When you start ministries, there is a law of diminishing returns. When you add new products, there is a law of diminishing returns. There are only so many ministries your team can functionally operate. I mean, just having a ministry, whether it's a Bible study or a life skills class or an apologetics class at your church, it requires resources. Well, maybe you can sustain 4 ministries really, really well. And if you're meeting the needs of your congregation, you're going to be able to get a lot of growth out of that. But, well, let's add another ministry. Well, now you're going to see diminishing returns because the actual quality of those ministries is going to go down because you're stretching yourself too thin. And so the question here is, what are the returns we're looking for from these ministries, and what is the level of quality that we want at a minimum? And then you only expand to that. And if it's 4 and that's what you can do and keep the quality where you want it, then you have 4, and maybe you're constantly testing a 5th option to see if that meets the needs of the people in your community. And if you see that just blow up past what all of your other 4 ministry programs can handle, because people just really love this new one, you're going to cut one of the old ones and you're going to incorporate that new one. And so in this way, you're always increasing the growth potential for whatever you're offering because they're higher and higher quality. They meet needs better, but you're also reducing the diminishing returns of just adding an infinite number of ministries. And when I work with ministry leaders, it is so common. The church has 30 ministries. Their budget is super strapped. Ministry leaders are just working and planning 60 hours a week or more, not seeing their families. They have gone way past the law of diminishing returns. And not only that, their heart is all 30 of these ministries are meeting some powerful need, but the problem is you don't have enough attention to do anything in a good and functional way. So all of them are languishing. So now we need to start cutting. We need to start pruning the vine and looking at the diminishing returns and deciding, what is the least amount of growth we're willing to accept. And when you say, well, the smallest program is going to need to have at least 20 people in it, no less, or 200 people in it and no less. This varies to the size of your ministry. It's got to have at least this, and it's got to have at least this rate of growth over a certain period of time, or whatever the number is you're looking for that determines a successful ministry for your church. And everything else, you cut it, because those are dragging down your ministry and it's draining your resources that could be going into these other ministries that are very functional but are being starved of resources. So this is maybe how we apply the law of diminishing returns in ministry. Same thing in business. You want as many products or services as you can handle while also offering a high quality, because you don't want the return on that service to go down because you don't have the resources to put into it. There's a lot of ways you can use this model. If you have questions, please put them in the comments. I'll look forward to hearing from you, and we'll get into the very next model right now. God bless.